Welcome to Dynamos Dozen, the podcast that we bring you each and every single week, where we talk about whatever may be on our minds, from pro wrestling, sports, entertainment, music, movies, muesli, fresh socks and jocks, and everything in between, never forgetting the talc. I'm going to have to start putting more emphasis on the entertainment side of things again going forward, because today it is probably going to be one of the strangest shows that I think we've ever done, considering the back catalogue that we've done. Talking about this man, when you think of the four Podmen shows that we did back over in the Dynamo Podcast Network that are still out there, we might have to re-release some of those again soon. Now, actually thinking about it, today we're going to be talking about the retirement of Vincent Kennedy McMahon, and I am very happy to be joined by my brother and your co-host for the day, stepping in for the shopkeeper while he's a little bit under the weather. But shopkeeper will be back tomorrow. And Ted Irving, you'll probably be back tomorrow too. That's right. Ted from Retrotainment and the Recast is on. How are you, my friend?
Hopefully back tomorrow. Hopefully we'll see.
Hopefully.
See if I can make it.
We'll see.
No, I'm good, but obviously this is a bit of a strange one. I didn't think we'd be doing this until we were doing a goodbye, Vince, and I don't mean goodbye as in retiring. I meant goodbye as in the man's passed on. I didn't think we'd be doing a show like Vince. What's the WWE going to be like without Vince until the man passed away?
Yeah, I honestly feel the same. And I mean this in no disrespect, but I thought we'd be putting the two proverbial gold coins on the eyes to kind of pay the ferryman, to be honest with you. By the time we'd be talking about Vince done with WWE.
I think we all did, it's not disrespectful. Like, we all thought Vince was gonna, and he said it on Pat McAfee's show. He won't, he was gonna do this till the day he died. Like, that was his intention, was always to just keep going.
It's so surreal, isn't it? And I suppose what we're gonna do today is we're not gonna talk at all actually about the whole, supposed alleged affairs and money paid here, money paid there. We talked about this before on previous shows, and look, it's out there now for people to, either draw their own conclusions or not. I don't think, even listening to some of the big boys in the world of wrestling that have known Vince, some of them have actively spoken out saying, well, they don't believe he done anything wrong by paying someone off. People don't, there's no proof in certain things. So that's not what we're here to talk about today. What we are going to do, as you can see by Ted's background there, we're going to kind of, I suppose, pay homage in a way. And we will criticize also at certain times, because, I mean, it is Dynamos, doesn't it? It is an objective show. And we give our opinions, and we're held accountable to those opinions. But we're going to talk about, the impact, and that's really, what it all boils down to, the impact that Vince has had in pro wrestling. We didn't even write anything down for this. This is completely off the cuff. I mean, this man was in control of WWE since 1982. So it's 40 years, 40 years. Yeah. I mean, it was a pretty quick gig for Vince, from taking over from his dad and then basically remortgaging his gaff and betting his life basically on WrestleMania being a success, which we look back now, it really was in 1983, it really, really was.
Yeah, well, that's it. Like, I can't imagine my life without WrestleMania. Do you know what I mean? Like, I've grown up and WrestleMania was always a big thing, but when he first did it, it was this was a big risk, and he pulled out all the stops. He was like, right, I'll go out and I'll get like actual celebrities in, because I need a global audience, not just the wrestling audience. I need the world watching. Yeah. And they say that all the time, the world is watching. Yeah. Well, that's why, because that's what he needed. He went out, he bet, as he said, like, remortgaged the house, bet everything, every dollar he had on himself to make this work. Now, and he obviously was helped along the way, along with all the wrestlers that were on the show, and the fact that Hulk Hogan had shot to stardom. But that was a lot. Vince did a lot of that. He cherry picked Hogan. He said, that's the guy I'm gonna rest my company on at the start. And he's always kind of had somebody. There's always been the one big guy, and then there's been the the other guys kind of propping him up. And Hogan was the first, but none of that happens without Vince. And that, like as you said, we're not going to talk about all the allegations and whether they're true, whether they're not, anything like that. But a lot of people have wanted Vince to retire for a long time, and he's out of touch. He's a 77-year-old man. He's out of touch with what's popular at the moment. But people need to remember that, okay, maybe we don't love the product right now, but because he's a little bit out of touch. But without him, we don't have this product, and we don't get all those memories that we've had. Like all these images I have behind me, like they don't exist without Vince McMahon.
And to be fair, I reckon most people, the demographic of listeners and viewers of this show, most certainly are in love with pro wrestling, or certainly in WWE terms anyway. I know there's a lot of older people that probably did grow up that watched, the territories that are, because we have a lot of States listeners, but I would say 80% of our listeners and viewers grew up and got into pro wrestling because of what Vince created. You know what I mean? Especially the likes of the early 90s, mid 90s, late 90s, and then
oh yeah,
the absolute explosion then with Rock and Austin. So when we look at Vince, I suppose you mentioned Hogan there. It's probably good to start at the beginning because you mentioned obviously he helped. I think both of them guys owe their career to each other, because I've heard people on the show before shout out to Jay Kennedy. I know he used to kind of wind us up, not a Hogan fan. Hopefully we'll have Jay on again soon, but say, oh well, if it wasn't Hogan, it was someone else. But that's irrelevant because it was Hogan. And I think the respect and the work ethic that they both had kind of coincided with each other. The Hogan was actually able to take the ball and run with it and deliver what Vince expected of him. And I suppose they grew a brotherhood, and Vince has always had this, hasn't he, with his top stars? You know what I mean? He grows a bond that's kind of it's unbreakable, and sometimes it gets broken, but then it always gets put back together in the end. It's very unique, isn't it? Kind of thing with Vince McMahon that he has with a lot of his employees, really.
Yeah, well, like as you say, like he has to rely on them. Like he has to inherently trust Hogan. Like when he was like, right, I'm going to put it all on Hogan. I'm going to bet everything on Hogan being my top guy. He had to trust
house.
that. he had to trust that Hogan wasn't 2 years in going to go, yeah, I'm after making a shit ton of cash. Like I can just retire. Like he had to trust that Hogan was going to stick around. And like, as you said, yeah, like listen, it could have been anybody else, but and like here's the thing, right? As great as Ric Flair is, would wrestling have made it to what it did if you had Ric Flair instead of Hogan? No, because Ric Flair is as great as he is in the ring, and as great as he is as a heel, he doesn't have that charisma. He has a different charisma, like kind of, yeah, you can love him when he is the face, but not the charisma the way Hogan had it. To draw like crowds of like followers, like legions of followers. People didn't follow Flair in that way. They liked Flair, they supported him.
Hulkamania really was a big thing. I mean, like when you look at, I suppose another thing you pointed out that he got stars like Liberace was a star, Muhammad Ali was a star. Like, I mean, there's
Mr. T,
stars, Mr. T. But then like Cyndi Lauper, who was like the face.
Cyndi Lauper one or two?
She was one, and she was
one, yeah.
But she was actually the face of MTV at the time, and MTV had just exploded. So we tapped into that, and then you had the whole rock and wrestling connection. Like Hulk Hogan was literally on every MTV promo and stuff. But not only that, Ted, the man was legitimately he was billed at 6'8", 300 pounds. He was probably a good 6'7", 6'6", and close to 300 pounds at the time. The man looked like a physical specimen. And when I grew up in the Hulkamania era, and it was like literally watching a real life superhero. You know what I mean? So it's there's you could point out someone that say, oh well, they had a look But would they have had the work ethic as Hogan? Would they have had the charisma as Hogan? Would they have had all the components? I mean, you're talking about a guy who was bald as well,
Yeah,
but that didn't
but
even
like,
matter.
it's kind of similar to Rock Austin. If you jump ahead a few years, like
Yeah,
out of Rock and Austin, personally, I'd always be like, yeah, Austin's definitely better. I love Austin,
yeah,
right?
me too.
And and that's noticeable by like, Austin came back at Mania this year, and the pop he got. Like, people love Austin, but they don't flock and follow Austin the way they do The Rock, because Austin doesn't do, you know, this. And I know Hogan didn't have social media back then, but like, that's what one of the tools that The Rock has, and he's very active on it, and he's very, he's a guy that people would follow. So if you had to make a choice between which one of them to pin your company on back in the 80s, it would have been Rock.
Yeah,
Now, Austin
Dwayne
worked
Dwayne
perfectly for the
Johnson
time he was doing it.
Dwayne Johnson has a similar charisma to the Hogan as well. Whereas Austin could be funny, he could be dangerous, he could be all of that. Whereas, you knew what promo you were getting with Austin, or with Rock. You knew what promo you were getting with Hogan, and they came for those,
Yeah,
those. Whereas Austin built his career on being the guy that kicked his boss's ass, and
yeah, and I mean that's what worked in the 90s, because
yeah,
everyone felt that way. But
yeah,
in the 80s, everyone wanted a superhero to flock to. They wanted to
yeah,
follow and adore someone. And in Rock and Austin, that was Rock.
yeah.
And then obviously Hogan was it back in the 80s, and that's where Vince pinned it. And like, Vince told Hogan that he had to change his style. Like, you go back and watch Hogan in Japan,
Yeah.
that's not the Hulk Hogan we know anymore. Like, Vince said to him, "No, forget all that. Like, you don't need to do all that. You just need to a few punches, a few kicks, the five moves of doom or whatever." But he said it to like Hogan back then. He was like, "You don't need to be doing all that stuff. All right, you'll get over, because people will feel sympathy for you, and they'll want you to win, and they'll believe you can, because look at you, you obviously can." Like, they had to work together, and accept, like, Hogan had to trust him and go, "All right, boss, I'll pull back my repertoire. I won't be doing all that stuff that I used to do. I'll be very bland and generic in the ring. And you say it'll get me over, and I'll trust you." And it did.
He created big fight feel, and you're right.
Yeah.
And Hogan was able to. I mean, I think Hogan's one of them. I don't want to spend too much on Hogan, but he was one of. He's actually very underrated in the ring in terms of his selling ability and his
Mm.
ability to garner sympathy just by putting an arm out. And he had that face where it looked like he needed you to kind of come to his aid. So, and that transcended both in the crowd and on screen. And again, that was the Vince genius as well. It was like, look, you learned under Vern Gagne. I know what Vern Gagne is all about. He creates great wrestlers. I don't need you to be a great wrestler. I need you to be a superstar. And that kind of brings us a little bit forward, because obviously the first three WrestleManias, listen, the first 8 WrestleManias and 9, depending on who you're talking to, were all Hogan driven, very Hogan driven.
Yeah.
And they sold the tickets based on Hogan. So, I mean, I go back to my first point. Both of them pretty much owe their careers to each other,
Yeah.
in every way, I think. And it's amazing how Hogan goes this way, but still has the loyalty to Vince with the steroid trial. Again, I don't want to stay on controversies,
Yeah.
even though he's gone. But Vince finds a new way then and starts bringing other stars in, and we can see two of them right behind you there, and Brett and Sean.
Yeah.
Um, some people call them small men. If you were standing beside them, they wouldn't be small, but they were small compared to the warlords and
Yeah. These 6'8" guys.
yeah, yeah. And it was what do you think about how he reinvented the 90s? Now it became very cartoonish in the 90s. We saw ridiculous gimmicks like the Goon, which is the hockey guy, and
Yeah. And Repo Man,
Mantor,
and yeah. And,
Man Mountain
there was a
Rock, who
lot
just
of
came out with all the
yeah, like there was a lot of them, and then there was it had gotten a bit cartoony, which to be fair, would have worked in the 80s.
Yeah.
But when we got into the 90s, I don't think it would have survived if he hadn't switched to the likes of Sean and Brett. I think he needed to switch to these more serious wrestlers, if that makes sense, and that's not a knock at anybody, but this is where a guy like Flair would have thrived, because it was mainly about match quality. This is when match quality became a thing.
At this time too, yeah.
Yeah. And this is when match quality became a thing. Back in the 80s, nobody gave a shit how good or bad a match was, because how good or bad a match was depended on, who won. That's all. Like you never thought to yourself, well, now that other guy was great in the ring. Like, so you saw Brett and Sean like killing each other. And there was plenty of other guys as well. But like match quality, like Macho Man's match quality started to really mean something, and I think that's the way the mindset had moved to, and Vince recognized that. And again, this is why he was so good, because it might have taken him a little bit to recognize it. It might have taken an extra year than it should have, but that's because he doesn't want to take that risk. Again, he's already taken that big risk with WrestleMania 1. He didn't want to take the risk of, let me change up this style completely and hope it works, because if it doesn't, we're in trouble. He waits and he goes, okay, this is what I need to do. And he went and did it. And we got Brett Michaels, and nobody can say they didn't love that. Okay, the crowds weren't maybe as big, but I think that was just a lull in the wrestling business at the time.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that was universal, and I think as well, it goes back to the point that you hear anybody that knows Vince has always said, if Vince is actually the biggest pro wrestling fan, he actually does love pro wrestling, which never transcended, onto TV after kind of the 90s. It was all about how big a star he can be. But I get it, it's always going to be about how big a star he can be, but the quality of the match wasn't always the key points, whereas he kind of really gave Brett and Sean the reins. And this shows that he was watching these guys from their tag team days, which a lot of the fans had grown up with those tag teams as well. While they were cheering on Hogan, they were probably looking at Heart Foundation and the Bulldogs, looking at the Rockers, and the Demolition, and going, oh, I like these guys. And you notice as well, you start seeing the likes of Tito Santana and all these guys coming back a little bit more and being kind of, good opponents for the likes of the guys that he was trying to build. I know he tried to build Lex Luger again with the Lex Express and all, and that was going to be his Hulkamania Mark II. But it showed that the fans were actually like, no, Lex isn't our guy. Brett's our guy.
We don't want him.
Brett's our guy.
We want a guy who's a technician in the ring. Yeah. And as you said, like, this is when Flair kind of stepped back into it as well. And you have to wonder, like, well, why didn't he want Flair back when he had Hogan and all these other big names, Hacksaw Jim and Duggan and things like that? Because Flair didn't fit the mold that he wanted then. Yeah. And that's not a knock at how, like, Flair's ability. He didn't fit what Vince wanted at the time. And then in the 90s, he did. So he went and got him.
He allowed storytelling, didn't he? Because, like, you look at when Brett and Michaels were the champions, and they are the two key. The reason we're mentioning those two, it's not because we're biased. It's just because it's fact. You looked at Brett, like, he was wrestling the likes of, Bam Bam Bigelow and Yokozuna a lot. And it was shown that, okay, these smaller guys have to be smarter, but they can garner sympathy because here's a big guy kicking the shit out of them. But guess what? Yeah. They have it up here, had to come back and know how to win. So
then he had boys like Razor Ramon as well. Do you know? Like,
Diesel, obviously.
Yeah, like these big guys as well, but they could work. You know what I mean? It wasn't just punches and kicks anymore. Like, these boys could tell the story.
Well, Razor could work. I think it took Diesel a bit of time. He was kick, but he didn't need to do anything other than
But I mean, again, he's a big 7 foot. He's a big 7 footer, same as Yokozuna. Like, I don't want to see Yokozuna doing suplexes. You know, here's a guy who's like 600 pounds. All he needs to do is run into you, and that should be it, And that's what they allowed, He gave Brett and stuff the freedom to go, right, well, okay, your match doesn't need to be the same all the time. Okay, you need to have your moves, that the crowd will pop to. Like, oh, Brett's hit is, his elbow off the top. Brett's hit, like, he's setting him up for the sharp shit. Like, you need to still have those things, yes, 100%. But the rest of the match will let you kind of work out how you're going to get an advantage over this guy. He let them have their reins a bit.
Yeah, and it's kind of right. So, like, when you move on, then, like, kind of to when the Attitude Era begins, you've got the whole thing with Brett and Sean, the whole Montreal screw job. We're not going to get into that either because that's been spoken about, a million times. But obviously, it's important to just mention it a little bit because, it's come out at a time. I'm just dropping this in here. It's come out at a time that, in and around those 2 months that apparently, 7 million was paid off to someone, but they couldn't afford to keep Brett. Which is it's kind of it's kind of ironic when off the back of WrestleMania 13, where you're looking at, in some people's minds, the best wrestling match of all time, if not one of the best stories told, and that's where the newest star is created, because obviously Shawn was building up to coming back to being the star that Vince had hoped he would be, but he had never quite got over with the crowd as a babyface as they hoped. I think Shawn was always a better heel anyway.
He was a better heel until his return. Yeah, he was
Until version
always
2.0. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But so Austin comes out of this, and this is really the start of and this is really what turns it all around. You know what I mean? Because you've let the guy go that has helped do this double turn and helped create this new star with the program that they've built up. And I guess that guy's job is done. He's gone to the competition, and the competition just start waning anyway because they don't know what to do with anybody anymore. But Vince knows what to do with Stone Cold Steve Austin. He decides, you know what, off the back of this, because Vince knows he fucked up in a lot of ways with the screw job and probably wished he could have done it a different way. When you hear Vince talking normally out of character, he said as much, But for television, it turns out to be gold, because you've screwed a guy that's given you 14 years. And now we're going to hate you because he's come out, he's tried to do everything. He decides, you know what? I'm not going to hide behind it. I'm going to put myself in the firing line here. I'm going to be.
I'm Mr. McMahon.
Yeah.
I'm Mr. McMahon, damn it.
You can't say it without the damn it, can you?
But like, as you're 100% right, Vince had always been he'd always been on the show. He was a commentator. He was an
very
interviewer.
Good commentator, by the way. Underrated, I think.
Yeah, but like an interviewer as well. He was always kind of out there and in front of the crowd, I suppose. But it was after the whole Brett thing, he went this, and again, it's his own genius. He realized I can't, there's no shying away from this. The dirt sheets exist now already. People know what's happened. They are the general public hate me. Only one thing to do: lean into it, and he did. He leaned into it, and he was this nasty, horrible boss, and that gave Austin. And again, as you said, back with Hogan, Hogan needed him. He needed Hogan. Well, Austin needed Mr. McMahon. 100%. Austin never gets to be Stone Cold Steve Austin without Mr. McMahon.
Without a shadow of a doubt. This is one of my favorite moments. I'm just looking at that picture in the corner there, just above Brett and Vince. The things they'd done to this man, and then eventually the fans knew that the payoff, Hulkamania's payoff was, the pose down and, the waving of the flag, the thumb in the air to people. The payoff for fans in this era was that Austin was going to give you that and then give you the stunner. And,
but even remember that first stunner to Vince.
Yeah.
That was weeks in the making. It wasn't just, right, get him out here and hit me.
Slow build.
No, it was weeks in the making, and he'd screwed Austin over loads, and Austin had come out in the suit to do the interview with Vince, because Vince had told him the week before, you're the champion now, you need to be wearing the suit and all. And then he starts taking it off and he's giving him all this, and then he sprays him with the beer and all that, but he's still never laid hands on him. But then that first stunner, okay, it was shit. Vince took the stunner. It's the second worst stunner Vince has ever taken, and the worst one was very recent.
The most recent, yeah.
Yeah, and that can be forgiven. The man's in his 70s, it can be forgiven. But it's one of the worst stunners you've ever seen taken. But that didn't matter. Nobody cared that it was a shit stunner. You know, everyone was just so happy to see Austin finally flip him off and just, you know, hit that stunner and then walk out of the ring as like, and nobody walks like Austin. Do you know what I mean?
No.
He's dropping shapes every fucking step, and you know the neck is fucking not as much as D'Lo Brown's neck, but you know the neck is going the whole
But
time
the
when he's walking.
face,
It's
like
just
he looks like Phil Anselmo on steroids. You know what I
yeah.
mean? Just looks like
But
he's
then
literally gonna kick your ass.
even the way he held the belt, you know, like a lot of people will wear the belt out or they'll have it on the shoulder. Austin walked out with the belt kind of like not dragging on the floor, but you know, it was in his hand, but it would kind of hit the floor
But
because of the
kind of
way he was
dragging, yeah.
walking.
Kind of dragging,
Yeah,
yeah.
like it wasn't dragging in a disrespectful sense, but he was like, this is mine and it's not coming out of my hand. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he'd walk to the ring like that and then, you know, throw up the guns like that and the belt would just kind of flop whatever way it flopped. You know, like, Austin was a phenomenon. And like with that whole thing, you got to see so much good stuff. Obviously, you had, you know, Vince teaming up with The Rock to try and take
Well,
out
I mean,
Austin.
the
And
Mike
then,
Tyson incident is one of the biggest ones as well because that was
yeah,
so early on. Because that was, I remember, I remember when that came out. People, no, because I was still one of the only big pro wrestling fans around,
hmm,
around kind of my family and stuff like that. And a couple of my cousins now were massive fans. They were like, "You see, Tyson is fighting Austin. Like that, it's on Sky News, and it was actually on Sky News." And because Mike Tyson had just got a ban shortly after biting Evander Holyfield's
yeah,
ear, and they were saying he's coming back to the ring in a different way. And you know, Vince's performance in that was unbelievable because when you know Austin, you know, gives him a little bit of sign language. And when
yeah.
Vince starts trying to kick Austin when he's out on the ground, he goes, "You ruin it, damn it!"
Yeah. And like you bought into it because it looked like those two boys were ready to kill each other. And
Yeah,
like, you know, I'm
Vince
not
is such
doubting
a
how
good actor,
tough.
by the way, such a good
Yeah,
actor.
I'm not doubting how tough Austin is, but you know, he's not tough enough to be taking on Mike Tyson. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Well, you know,
not in a legit.
I think we saw a bit of that in the ring as well, didn't he? Because when he gave him a little bit of sign language,
Oh
the
yeah, Mike
velocity
was.
of that push from Mike,
Oh yeah,
prime Mike Tyson was like, I'd say Austin even felt that in his chest a little bit. And I'd
yeah.
say
But
Sean was probably shitting himself when he had to fucking sell. I'd say
yeah,
he
but
was literally ready.
Jericho said that he was shitting it when he had to take it as well, and that's not a prime Mike Tyson. Jericho said that he was shitting it. He was
Yeah.
terrified. He was like, I'm going to get knocked out, like, and he
It's
was
no
like, but you
wonder.
know,
It's no wonder Michaels was on pills going into that match. He was like, "I'm gonna
Jesus,
need
yeah.
something to numb the pain if this
Yeah.
connects."
But you know what I mean? Like we had Vince as like the super serious bad guy there, right? And then the picture just above me here is he's still in that feud with Austin, so he's still this horrible,
Oh,
mean boss. But then you've got Mick Foley coming in and he's doing all these, you know, and like that's the introduction of Mr.
Mr.
Socko.
Socko.
And you know, he's had his run-ins with McMahon before where he's been dude love and Vince has screwed him over and Vince gave him the hardcore title as a joke, which, you know, as much as that was a joke, you know, this beat up, like broken up title, it became one of the favorite titles of the entire world. Like, but like you could see, like Vince had that, you know, as he said, his acting ability, like he fit into that, like, oh my god, not Mr. Socko and all that, and then I'll take it from here, nurse, and the fear in Vince's face when, like, we all know it's Austin because we've heard him talk. We're like, it's Austin, and Vince notices it as well, and then gets clonged with the bedpan. Like everything Vince did for that, you know, he put over Mankind massive in there, put over Austin again, and then he comes back to the show a couple of weeks later, and he's still putting over everyone around him, while being the big mean boss.
Yeah, it was amazing. Like he had that comedic value too. I mean
Yeah,
that picture you've got there of him just meeting Mr. Socko, like the facial expression on Vince alone,
yeah,
is fantastic. And then you know if we look at the picture beside it, I mean that was fantastic when he did eventually buy his competition. And you know the jury is still out there. This is for a different show. The jury's still out there whether they went the right way once they bought
they
WCW.
didn't, but
That
yeah.
was and Vince went the wrong way. To be fair, it was ego driven. You know,
Yeah, it was rushed and it was rushed. There was rush, there was ego, and then there was the fact that a lot of the big stars were like, we can just continue to take the pay that we were getting and sit at home,
but
and they
then
did
but then
that.
you look at some of the guys that didn't. take that and they
Yeah,
like DDP is a perfect example. I mean, what a
yeah. I know,
waste,
and I'm not saying that
you know.
everyone, but imagine you had that invasion angle, right? And you had Goldberg coming in as your because Goldberg was the like he was the opposite of
And
Austin,
Sting.
he was
Sting was
WCW's
also
Austin.
Sting was the big
Yeah,
one
well,
as well.
Sting was a little bit different because Sting held out for a very, very long time. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? But if you had Austin and Goldberg, you had the NWO coming in, and I mean the NWO is just the three boys. If they'd come in at the start, if you'd had, well, we'd already had Benoit, Malenko, Perry Saturn, and stuff
Jericho
come
and
out,
Eddie
and Eddie,
Guerrero and all, yeah.
they'd already come over. Yeah, like they'd already come over, but there was still a lot of big names there. Do you know what I mean? Like Rey Mysterio hadn't come over by that point, and then
But I think
there was a
the
lot.
two for me were definitely though. I mean, look, realistically, it took a while. I mean, we only saw the NWO coming in once that had all died down because again, ratings
Yes,
had gone down. So they were the three that you wanted, the three original NWO members. You wanted
yeah,
Goldberg and you wanted Sting in his prime for Undertaker.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah. And
So
like, yeah, Sting's a little bit different because obviously he held out for a long time, but a lot of the like those other boys just held out just long enough to get their pay. And you're like, I don't blame them, but it did hurt Vince. But then if he had them, would he have used them that way, or would he just have buried them to kind of say, well, fuck you, Hall, Hogan, Nash, you guys fucked me, so
yeah,
you're just going to get beaten easily.
yeah.
But
Because
yeah,
he
like
done that
again,
with
you can
Jarrett
you
all
can
right on live TV, didn't he? He was like,
yeah.
enjoy the unemployment.
Well, that's because Jeff Jarrett really fucked them.
Well,
Back then.
now there's context because we can listen to My World with Jeff Jarrett, who's a good friend of the show.
Oh
And
no,
he gives
I'm not saying
his
Jarrett did anything wrong, but
yeah,
Jarrett was like his contract was up and he was still the champion, and Vince was like, "We'll just pay you this much," and Jarrett was like, "No, pay me double,"
yeah, yeah.
And like I'm not saying like, but obviously Vince would have felt very, he would have had a lot of hard feelings to Jarrett because of
Oh
that,
no,
but
no, no, 100%. I'm just throwing that in there. But when you
but
when you
like you
see
see
when you
like
saw
as you said
Flair
his
come in
face
though,
there,
but
yeah,
yeah,
his
when you saw
face when
Flair come
Flair
in
comes in,
with the consortium and that famous speech with when you sold a bit of the consortium was me, and
yeah,
we
we're
got to
50%
see.
owners.
Well, we got to see a lot of entertaining stuff with them too. Then, obviously, Vince when he done that whole walking around with the robe, with the blue robe and the little hairpiece on, and they obviously
Yeah.
had that match where basically it was like a Crimson Massacre. We saw
Oh
Vince.
Jesus.
We saw Vince with
Oh
Hogan.
my God.
Vince,
That match where Vince when he
he
comes up
came up
from
over the
behind
apron.
with the big smile but his big bloody face again, that's just it's so funny. And I know Vince probably didn't mean it to be funny, he meant it to be like, intimidating and stuff like that, but he has to know that when he looked at that he was like, yeah, that's one of the funniest things I've ever done.
That's hilarious.
And you see it again, like, and it's one of those like you'd see it like as a very big thing on like memes, um, I think the actual scene is when Stacy Keibler comes out and she's like dancing on the desk and she wants to be a secretary. But you see the meme all the time of, Vince's face is like he's kind of smiling and then it gets bigger and then he's like, and he falls off the chair and everything. And you're just like, this is a guy who is he's a multi-billionaire, owns the company. He does not need to be making a fool of himself out there. And I know, like, to an extent, people are like, oh, he's not making a fool of himself. He is. Like, he's still going out there and being, silly and getting his ass kicked and, doing comical things.
Well, didn't
You know,
Stephen Regal said that, didn't he? William Regal, sorry, but I'm
yeah,
using his real name. But
yeah,
William Regal said that when they were saying the Kiss My Ass Club, kind of you made a fool of, and he said, listen, when you've got the boss of the company coming out and pissing his pants live on TV because he thinks he's going to get shot by
yeah,
Stone Cold, and it's a little bang thing, he's willing to put himself in the firing line. He kind of has you over a barrel as to what you're.
yeah. And then when Vince has to kiss the ass and, The Rock brings out all these people and he brings out Trish.
Yeah.
And then Vince is on his knee, like Vince on his knees when he thinks he has to kiss Trish's ass, and he's like, and then Rock's like, no, 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 no. And then Rikishi comes out, and you're like, this man owns the company. There is no way he needs to put his face into Rikishi's ass here, but he does. Like Vince didn't take himself too seriously in that sense. He knew that sometimes he had to be the butt of the joke.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I get it 100%. And there's so many moments. I suppose like one of the things I'd like to say from a personal standpoint, because everybody on this show knows, and they're probably sick to death of me hearing it. One of the biggest moments was obviously when he brought Brett back, and
Yeah,
you see Brett and Sean now like that, which is great to see. But when Vince basically allowed himself to just get beaten around the
yeah,
ring at WrestleMania by vicious chair shots that, that were,
yeah.
some of them were laid in, but you could be
And
guaranteed that that was Vince saying, "Lay them in on me," you know.
yeah, well, Vince originally wanted a match, and Brett said I can't do a match because I'll lose my settlement claim.
Lloyd's of London, yeah.
Um, with Lloyd's of London, and Vince said, right, well, I'll work out a way to get you in that ring against me, where it doesn't affect that at all because you won't be taking any risk, no bumps, no nothing. Like you will literally be standing the entire time. And like Vince worked it out, and he goes, right, I've found out a way. And he's like, right, you come out and you just beat the shit out of me with that chair. I did you wrong. All right, lay them in. I'm not a young man anymore. Don't kill me, but lay them in. I can take it. Like
And even
as
even the start of
much.
that, even the start of that, you talk about someone making a fool of themselves, you know, convincing Brett that he screwed him again. He was
Oh
like,
yeah, with the
"Oh,
whole
he
family.
got the whole family," and then the whole family bet the shit out of them, and he took a few bumps from all the family members, and
Yeah,
some of those family members probably hadn't worked in a while, and some of them were actually potatoes. So
yeah,
I'm just using that as an example of the man as well, because
yeah,
it's easy to kick a man while he's down, no pun intended, but
yeah, and
it is. But behind, I think we even got to see it in Pat McAfee, which is kind of sad that it might be the last interview we see of him. I don't think it's the last we've seen of Vince in a public forum. Personally, I think
no, we'll probably see him again.
I think he's too proud not to be seen, and not to go down fighting in some way, shape, or form. But he does care. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of these guys he cared about. It's easy for people to throw stones and goes, well, he had his favorite Shawn Michaels and John Cena and whatnot, blah blah
Yeah,
blah. But
but why shouldn't he have a favorite in John Cena? That guy was making money from, and let's not forget, like we all loved Cena for a very long time. Then we, despised Cena for a little while, and then Cena went away for a little while, and he came back, and we all loved him again.
I've never despised John Cena. I just want to say that for the
No,
record.
but I'm not saying any individual people, but like
Oh no, I know.
as a whole, the wrestling community
I'm just
despised
teasing.
Cena
I'm just
for
teasing.
for a little while. They were like, oh, nobody wants me. The kids still loved him, but like the adult wrestling community all despised him. Oh, nobody'd ever want to see Cena. But then when he went away, we were like, actually, yeah, we do want to see Cena, and we want him back. Like,
I mean, yeah, like it's just, it's stuff like he's always going to have conflict with people because you know, as much as Vince's ego has been talked about, you're dealing with people that want to be stars. And once they get to a certain level, they believe that they are the man. Case in point, CM Punk, you know, like he was willing to make himself look like an idiot in some of those segments as well with CM Punk.
yeah,
So he'll always do what's best for business. I know that coin has been termed on TV, but that's obviously their motto behind the scenes as well. What's best for business? It was Vince's term, and when you look at that little picture there of Steph and Hunter on either side of you, like they were coming
yeah.
out as
Vince is in the middle behind
yeah.
me, but
I know you're Vince at the moment. That's what I'm saying. You're the
yeah, I'm
Vince
I'm
at,
the Vin
at the moment,
I'm the Vince on this at the
and they're
moment. But yeah,
basically they're going with his narrative. You know what I mean? Um,
yeah,
Look, things are going to change a lot, which we'll talk about tomorrow. But as we kind of wrap up here, it's going to be, it's kind of like, even though it's probably best for business, best for wrestling, that it's happening at a time where you've got somebody who's still young and thankfully healthy enough in Triple H. Thank God,
yeah,
his health is back to its best, or hopefully it is. And obviously Stephanie, who has grown up in the business, and I'm sure Shano will have some kind of role back there. Um, it's the right time anyway. maybe under the wrong circumstances, and maybe you would have liked to see him go out on his own terms a little bit. I would.
Yeah, like I'd have liked to get a goodbye Vince McMahon show, which we're not going to get now. We might get one in 5 years when this is kind of blown over. And like I do want to like preface all this by listen, none of us are claiming that Vince is a nice person. Like he's been very nice to some people, but he has done some very questionable things in his life, and a lot of them he's admitted that he was wrong, and a lot of them he won't have. And this whole scandal, like, there's no smoke without fire, and I know, as we say, it's innocent until proven guilty, but the fact that he has stepped away and has retired, it really does add, like, credence to some of the stuff that's been said. And this isn't us, giving Vince a free pass. It's not us saying, just forget about everything that Vince may have done that's been wrong. That's not it. But don't forget how much Vince has impacted your life as a wrestling fan, because over here in Ireland, probably wouldn't be a wrestling fan if it wasn't for Vince McMahon, because I wouldn't, there wasn't really much wrestling over here. Anyone that was Irish or English, you might have got World of Sport every once in a while, but even World of Sport was kind of on its way out in the 90s. So it's not a free pass of Vince McMahon, but it is a thank you for giving us something that we've all loved. It's been time for him to go for a little while. His finger isn't on the pulse. He doesn't get a lot of modern things. And I said this to you off air yesterday. Things like the New Day, where they were wearing like these bright colors, and he was like, "You guys aren't big enough to be wearing pink and dancing and all that." And they were like, "No, you don't get it. Like we can get this over. Like people will enjoy this, and they'll like that we make video game references." And Vince was like, "Well, I don't get it, but if you want to try it," and like Xavier Woods has come out and said like that to get that to happen, he had to tell Vince like, "I'll put my career on it. Like I'll bet my career. If this doesn't work, fire me. That's it. Like fire me. I'll leave the company. No questions asked." That's how much he believed in it, and Vince gave him that shot. But Vince, for all he's done, he is out of touch now, and we probably did need to see him go. I think this was something like this, or him dying, was the only way we were ever going to see him step away. And neither of them are good choices, I'd have liked to see him go out on a more happy note. I'm not saying any like us or anyone else forgives him for what he did, but this show is more of a thank you for entertaining us for the years and giving us something that will continue to entertain us, hopefully for a very long time, with a new person at the head, steering the ship in Triple H and Stephanie. Like,
yeah, and I back up everything you said, and like I said at the very start, a lot of these allegations at the moment are still alleged. I do agree with what you said. There's no smoke without fire. I am not condoning anything or taking away anything from any victims or certain victims or whatever. Look, I've called out Vince in the past for how many pro wrestlers didn't get looked after giving their pretty much their bodies, to the business, and probably should have a lot more respect above their name. I've campaigned for a long time about Dynamite Kid, as you know, how his name isn't even mentioned on WWE is beyond me. Especially when you look in the modern era, when you look at all these young guys and girls that basically said, no, we look back on his tapes and he's the guy. So I've got plenty of things that annoy me, but on the whole, when we look at our lifespan as professional wrestling fans, you hit the nail on the head. Like, it's all thanks to Vince, really. So this is essentially what this show is about. It's thanking Vince for the service that he provided on screen, and that's it. We're not privy to what goes on off screen.
Yeah.
So
I'm so happy that Vince made, like, I'm happy he killed the territories in that sense, because it gave me the chance to watch pro wrestling, something that I have loved since I was a kid, still love now. And unless something goes really, really badly wrong in the wrestling business, in terms of like the product going like really bad, can't see myself not loving it in the future, you know?
Yeah. Well, I think that is probably all we've got time for. Don't forget to tune in tomorrow because we are going to be talking about the next chapter in this story, which is, of course, the great Triple H, who is now in charge of creative. And we're going to be looking forward to that. We're going to be looking forward to SummerSlam. We're going to be looking back on Raw. And we're going to be looking ahead to probably an even bigger show than Raw with the go home show on SmackDown.
Mm.
Going into SummerSlam. And of course, there is the little subject of Ric Flair's last match as well that we're going to be talking about. So all that and more tomorrow. The shopkeeper will be back. But until next time, Ted, thanks for stepping in for the shopkeeper. You're really your tombstone Ted. You're wrestling Ted. You're anything you need to be. And we appreciate you, brother.
Yeah, no, it's always great to be on. As I said many times, I love pro wrestling. I love talking pro wrestling. I might have a lot of very different opinions to people. I'm a super positive pro wrestling fan. Very rarely
Good.
hate anything pro wrestling.
Good.
So I'm a little like some people might get annoyed by stuff I say, and me bigging stuff up and saying, "Oh no, it was a great show," because they might not like it. But if I ever don't enjoy wrestling, I'll stop watching it, and that's the truth. Like I'm not gonna watch something if I hate it. I'm not gonna I'm not spending 3 to 6 hours a week watching something I dislike. But if I'm not enjoying the product, I'm not going to be watching it.
Ted, some
And
people
I'm
have
still
said that
watching it.
some people have called me too positive lately. Imagine.
Hmm.
Go figure.
Yeah. But do you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of people out there that are very negative about pro wrestling. And all they do is complain that their favorite guy isn't on top. And yeah, okay, sometimes I'm guilty of that, but overall I'm a real positive wrestling fan. So I love talking pro wrestling because I love watching it, you know?
And that's why you're always welcome on this show, because there's got to be a yin to the yang sometimes as well. Opinions
Yeah.
are there for a reason. We don't all want to be singing from the same hymn sheet. Otherwise, you've got mass. And with that, nobody likes mass. And with that, that is about all we have time for. Don't forget to tune in tomorrow. Ted will possibly be on as well, depending on schedules. But until next tomorrow, Dynamo and Ted are over and out.